Olá, está no ar o Produtor Quer Saber, que hoje vai abordar o tema Segurança Alimentar. E por isso, o programa recebe Clay Hamilton, que é conselheiro do Departamento de Agricultura dos Estados Unidos. Mr. Clay, what's the difference of food security and food safety? This is one of the themes of the presentation.
It can be a little confusing, and I know in Portuguese the words are very similar. Food security is a term that's used to make sure that people in need have adequate food. For example, in Africa, where you have some of the really severe droughts, you have people who don't have enough food and they're starving. Food security is making sure that they have enough food. In countries that are more developed, you may have, in general, enough food for the population, but you have certain sectors, poor areas or remote areas that don't have enough food. And it's not just the concept of food, but also making sure that it's appropriate, that it's safe, the food that they receive is safe, it's nutritious, and it meets all of their basic needs. So that's food security. Food safety is something that every country has to deal with, whether they have plenty of food or not. Food security is making sure that when the consumer goes and buys a product, that it's safe, that they can consume it without any problems. It has to do with ensuring that animal health issues are handled appropriately, that any treatment for pests are not done in a way that presents health problems. So they're very different. In some countries, they tend to mix them, and they say food security is where we want to make sure that we produce enough food for ourselves and we don't want to import. That's not really food security, because you can have food security and still import.
Perfect. You said about starving people in the world. This number is something else about 800 million people starving in the world. What's the root of this problem? For example, are we not producing enough food for these people or no?
It's a little more complex than that. It's about 800,000 people don't have the nutrition that they need. That's more than just the people who are starving. It could be people who just don't have access to adequate food. The problem isn't production. We produce enough in the world right now to feed everyone that needs food. The problem is more distribution. We have food in certain places, but we don't necessarily have it where we need it. As the example in Africa, there's great areas that have very severe droughts, and they're really short on food. So there's areas where people are starving. Getting food to them is very difficult, because you've got to ship it, someone has to pay for it. Once you get into the country, sometimes distribution is very difficult. So those are it's distribution, sometimes it's political issues or safety that can really affect it. So right now we have enough food, we just don't have the ability to get it distributed as evenly as we'd like to see.
Perfect. This is one of the challenges that have to be overcome.
Yes.
For the production of food in the world. But what's the other challenges related to quality and quantity that have to be overcome as well?
Quantity, it's more dealing with the issues, the production issues, and that's something that we're having to deal with more and more because of climate change. In the United States, we've had severe droughts for the last several years, and that's had a major impact on our ability to produce some fruits and vegetables, grains, and some other things. This year, our situation's better, but it's something that we have to consider. I know Brazil also has had areas of drought, and so for quantity, there needs to be a lot of effort put into improving the way that we farm, making sure the farmers have the information they need, the technology they need. It's using water more efficiently. It's using seeds that produce more efficiently, that are drought tolerant. There's a lot of science that will go into it. People have said that because of the expanding population, I think in the next 30 to 40 years, we will have 30% more people than we have now. We'll have over 9 billion people. In order to feed them, we may need to increase our technology as much in the next 30 years as we have in the past 10,000 years. So we're really going to have to work together to ensure that we have the technology and the ability to feed the growing population.
Mr. Clay, say us some examples of the increasing of technology that we have to prepare to become some drought areas, especially in Brazil,
Right.
These areas producing foods.
I think Brazil is a very good example. If you look back over the last 20 years, production of your main crops, corn, soybeans, cotton, things like that, have increased 400%, which is tremendous. A good portion of that was because you increased the amount of land that you use. But the majority of your increase was because of technology, better seeds, better practices on the farm level. So it was all based on the ability of the farmers to get more production out of the resources that they had. And that's exactly what we need to do for the future. In order to feed this 9 billion people, it's really going to come down to countries like Brazil because you have so many advantages that other countries don't. You have 2 growing seasons, you have land that can be converted to production, and you have a very strong scientific base and a very intelligent farming sector that can take advantage of the new technologies. So we expect Brazil to play a major part, as they are now, in feeding the world.
This increasing of the population was my next question. We are now more or less 7 billion of people in the world. In 2050, we are going to be 9 billion. How to deal with this, producing food, feeding everybody? Right,
and it's not just the number of people. We've made great strides across the world in improving the living conditions of a lot of people. We have a much larger middle class. We have a lot fewer people that are very poor. We've improved the number. We've reduced the number of people who are starving or don't have enough nutrition. And so that's very good, but that creates an even bigger demand for food. People who are in the middle class have a greater demand and eat more than people in a lower class. So as we expand the economy and the number of people, it's a double hit, because that means you need even more food. And that's why people say that we need to increase production in the next 20 or 30 years as much as we've increased in the past 40 or 50, which is tremendous. And it's going to take a lot of effort from all countries to make sure that we can reach that goal.
Perfect. Eu estou conversando aqui com o Dr. Clay Hamilton, ele que é conselheiro do Departamento de Agricultura dos Estados Unidos, falando com a gente a respeito de segurança alimentar, um dos temas abordados aqui em seminário na CNA. Na sequência, vamos continuar com esse tema e voltaremos depois do intervalo com o Produtor Quer Saber. Até já!